why it's so difficult to lose weight. Two main reasons. Before I dive into each of them, what those two reasons are. Number one, habits. Habits are the driving factor that determines the outcome of your life. And then the second one, emotional health, dealing with our stresses. To dive deeper into this, why this is such an important aspect that's so many times overlooked when it comes to weight loss. When we try to lose weight, we always Google for what's the best diet, what's the quickest way to lose weight, the 10 kilograms in 10 weeks, the six-pack abs in 6 weeks, and all these kinds of stuff. But we are missing a very important aspect here. That is not your day-to-day living. And when I mean diet, we first of all need to define what the word diet means. When we say diet, we think about it as this thing we begin, we go on it for 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, we lose the weight, we then stop, and what happens? All that weight comes right back. And that's the thing. We've changed what the meaning is of diet. Diet means what we eat on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis in order to lose the weight and keep the weight off. It's not just focusing on going on the diet. It's focusing on changing your lifestyle, changing your habits, and then also addressing your stresses, your emotional health. To get a bit more clarity on what I mean here, let's take it in two parts. Let's first take the habits and the diet part. And when I talk about habits, I mean it's the actions you do daily. It's the things you've programmed your mind to continuously do. Think of it this way. When you brush your teeth, you don't think left, right, left, right, left, right. When you drive to work, you don't think where to turn left, where to turn right, where to go straight. You just automatically do it. Suddenly, you're in a new city. You will turn down the radio to see where to turn left or where to turn right. And that's the difference between a habit and active thinking. Active thinking is when you try to change something. It costs mental energy. Now, the sad part is your eating habits. 95% of all of that is habits. And let me illustrate it this way. When you go grocery shopping, isn't most of your groceries exactly the same thing every week? If your supermarket changes where certain aisles are, you will get upset because suddenly the food you always buy has changed to a different aisle. Now it feels jarring. You're like, where's this? What happened? I'm feeling lost. In order to change our diet, we need to focus on habits. And that's the thing with habits. Changing habits is hard. Changing in general is hard because the brain loves routine. The more habits you try to change, the more difficult it becomes. And the more difficult it becomes, the quicker we give up. That is why 95% of all diets fail, because you try to change 100 things in a week, you stick with the diet for 6 to 8 weeks, later, crash and burn, you give up and you go back to all your old ways. And here's the thing, habits are difficult to change. And first of all, you can't stop a habit, you need to replace a habit. And that's why, in order to lose weight and become healthy, it's about choosing one habit at a time. Once you can do that habit, the next habit, and then the next habit. And a suggestion I'll give you there, the 5 most important habits in order to lose weight. And they are, number 1, eating slower. Slow down. 20 to 30 minutes per meal. Don't scoff down your food. Take your time. Number 2, lean protein with each meal. Number 3, fruits and vegetables, 50% of your plate. Number 4, whole carbohydrates. And what I mean with whole carbs, they are things that you can see in their natural form. Potatoes, legumes, chickpeas, lentils, mung beans, amaranth, buckwheat, quinoa, butternut, sweet potatoes. If you can see what the carb was, you're in the right direction. And then the 5th one, sleep is vitally important. If I just have to touch on the topic of sleep, we can spend the next day going into it. But sleep is vitally important for willpower, satiation, blood glucose control, and then also the craving, the mental willpower to say no to the things you know you shouldn't be doing. And that's where we now transition to the second very, very important part, and that is stresses. If you're just constantly focusing on your diet this, but you neglect the mental aspect of things, I'm sorry to say, you are not going to get anywhere. Mental health. And when I mean mental health, I talk in general, our mental attitude towards life, our mental attitude, how we deal with stresses, anxiety, sadness, work, life, relationships. If those things aren't being worked on and constantly being improved and showing up to do the hard things, living healthy nutritionally and exercise wise becomes nearly impossible, because if mentally we don't have the willpower to do any of that, we start chasing escapisms. And those escapisms become things like alcohol, substances, drugs, gambling, social media, procrastination, getting lost in anything that keeps the mind busy so we don't need to address the stresses. You know, those days when you're stressed, frustrated, not in the best mental space? What foods do you eat? All the worst choices. Do you go to the gym? Do you go for your run? No, you don't. And the little voice inside your head keeps telling you, but it's been such a bad day. I'm so stressed. This chocolate will make me happy. This glass of wine will make me happy. You know what? I'm going to play some games for an hour or two. That'll make me happy. What's the price you pay for that? That's the instant gratification right now at the expense of the future progress you could have had. We always focus on this whole diet aspect of everything. And to be quite honest, in my own practice, the mental aspect is one of my biggest factors I focus on. Because unless we start dealing with our mental stresses, our emotional health, living healthy and showing up becomes nearly impossible. And the reason I'm making this video isn't to blame you for anything, or put you on a guilt trip, or make you fear all this change and how hard it is. I want you to get brutally honest with yourself. Go through your life. I want you to take one or two things nutritionally that you know you're not doing well. Not enough protein, too much sugar, too much processed food sources. Choose two things you would like to improve. Choose one thing, physicality. I'm not exercising enough. My steps is only 3,000 a day. Something like that. Something about movement where you move the body that you would love to improve. And then two more things in the mental side. And this is where I want you to really think. What are two things that's really mentally been bugging you, keeping you awake? The mind just can't detach from that line of inquiry. And then think about it. How can I show up to start dealing and facing that problem? And take those 5 things we've just identified. 2 things nutritionally that you need to focus on. 1 thing physically that you need to focus on. And then 2 things mentally you need to focus on. And then start thinking, what are the habits that you need to cultivate in order to start addressing those? And maybe choose 2 or 3 of those things to start. And if you're really determined, 4 or 5. That gets more difficult. 1, 2, or 3 is a good start. But at least now we know 5 things we need to start addressing in order to become a healthier, better version of ourselves. Living healthy isn't just about diet. It's about diet, physicality, mental health. It's about the big picture of life, and all areas need to be focused on. And I hope this gave you a bit of food for thought on not just chasing diets, but the overall holistic aspect of everything. And I would love to hear your comments down below. From these 5 things, what are some things you think will make a difference in your life? What are some of the habits you think that you need to change? Let's be honest with each other. Let's share some of these things and let's help give each other ideas on how some of these things might get changed. Because a lot of times getting extra input can make us see something from a different angle. And also it builds a bit of accountability, because once we verbalize something and put it out in the ether, it makes us more accountable to keep doing that thing. I would really appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe to this channel, because I don't just go into diets. I go into the whole psychological aspect of all these things, the things we don't always want to talk about or want to address. But that's the thing. By avoiding the things, we aren't getting better. Because in order to change, we need to face the hard things. We need to change the hard things. Think of it this way. You never stay the same. You are either getting better or you are getting worse, but you never stay the same. One last thing I'll add here. These are the things, even for myself, working in this industry, I still have to practice to this day. I still have to constantly pay attention to those 3, 4, 5 habits I'm working on. And once I've mastered one of them, I can move on to the next one. This is something we do lifelong, just like fitness. If we run our first marathon, amazing, you've put in the work. Then if you stop running, 6 months later, can you still run a marathon? Hell no, because you didn't keep on showing up, keep on doing the work. And that's the thing, living healthy, physically and mentally, it's about showing up every day. So what are you going to show up for? Think about those 5 things and drop it in the comments down below.